Sorry for the late start, but thanks for joining us. I'm here today with Lisa and Ashley. Both part of our. They're both formative certified educators, and Lisa is a high school English teacher, and Ashley is the director of distance learning for her own nonprofit company, and is also an adult educator. So they're both fantastic people today that are going to show us how to create hyperdocs. And so I know that I'm super excited to learn more. And so I'll let them take it away.
Okay. I think Lisa is going to share her screen now, and then we will get started.
Awesome.
Okay.
While she's doing that, just to give everybody a heads up of how this is going to go. So it's going to be, Lisa and I will both be contributing to this broadcast. So I will first cover, and this is Ashley speaking, sorry. I will cover the skills and knowledge and how to create a hyperdoc using a template. We'll move on to Lisa. We'll do the portion of how to use pre-made hyperdocs and make your own from scratch. And then I will cover sharing hyperdocs, and we will move back to Lisa on how to find and collaborate. Before we get started, just to kind of make it clear in what we're doing today, this is really just a basic how-to hyperdoc. So it's not getting into details. So it's really for those people who've never done it and just to kind of get you started. So just to get the ground running, basically. And Lisa, if you could go to the next slide. So our objectives today is for that by the end of this workshop, educators will know what skills and knowledge are needed to use hyperdocs, how to create hyperdocs using Google applications, how to use and edit pre-made hyperdocs, how to make hyperdocs from scratch, how to use hyperdocs in their lessons, and how to collaborate and find other hyperdocs. You can skip that one. First section will be how to hyperdoc, and this section is going to cover skills and knowledge. So as we're going through this presentation, it's really important to think about the following, especially if you're brand new to this. The one thing I want you to keep in mind is what skills and knowledge do the students and the teacher need in order to use hyperdocs, and really important, what technology do the teacher and the students need to use hyperdocs? So hyperdocs, what teacher and student need. It's very important. Now, I have heard there's other ways to use this. However, this is how it's really been brought about, is through Google. So it is important to have a Google account, the internet, some form of technology, Google Apps knowledge. Very important to have this. Websites to link to the hyperdoc. And just a side note real quick is this is a these are technology-based lessons. So they are also internet-based. So I recently watched a video, a live Facebook feed from the Hyperdocs girls, the girls who created it. So that was Lisa, Hi Phil, Kelly Hilton, and Sarah Landis. And they pointed out, because somebody said, well, what do I do if I don't have internet? They said you really do have to have internet to use this. This is what this particular lesson is based on. You can go to the next one. So hyperdoc skills and knowledge. So on here, you'll notice these are all Google applications. And you don't have to know every single thing in order to start. But you do need to have some basic knowledge on either Google Slides and or Google Docs. One or the other, because most hyperdocs are based on one or the other. However, I do know you can use Google Sites as well. It's important to know things, have that very basic knowledge, such as share a document, insert hyperlinks, how to locate on your Google Drive. That way you can locate it later. How to share and view only, how to insert tables, how to integrate other sites into your hyperdoc, how to make a copy, how to insert an image, how to insert videos, And for me, the most fun part, how to collaborate with other people. Some of these we will kind of show you today, but again, another tip that the Hyperdocs girls gave was it's very important that you understand how Google applications work. So if you don't know how to use Google right now, my first recommendation is to learn that first. And you also want to think about, do you and or your students already know how to use any of the items above? Because if you have some basic knowledge, you can go ahead and start using Hyperdocs right away. You can go next, sorry. So technology, sometimes technology is an issue, especially in my industry in adult education. So I kind of broke it down a little bit on best technology to use. Of course, I'm always going to say desktop computers would be my first piece of advice if you have them, along with laptops or Chromebooks. If you don't, you can use student devices such as iPads, notebooks, or cell phones. I would make a side note on that. Be very careful of how complicated your Hyperdoc becomes if you're going to use something like a cell phone or even a notebook. You need to know, you have to understand what technology your students have before you just jump into something like that. If you have a lack of technology, you could group or pair students so they could share a device or take turns. Another thing that I've actually done before is you can walk through the Hyperdoc on and overhead as a class. Or you can also assign it as homework, where you could have students go to a lab or a library. Hold on one second. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Okay.
Ashley, do you want me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to do the side here. Another thing, you should walk through a Hyperdoc with a class if it's the first time that they're doing it. Like do a Hyperdoc together. That's a really good idea.
I absolutely agree. And actually, a side note on that also is, I know that I've taught different levels, so sometimes I teach higher readers versus lower readers. And with my lower readers, a lot of times what we do, especially if they're new to technology, we'll do each slide together or each section together. But for those students that are a little bit more advanced, I let them go ahead and go. So it's a nice opportunity to differentiate your instruction. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, you definitely want to tweak your Hyperdoc to meet the needs of not only your students, but also the technology you have available to you. Okay, so our next section then is going to be how to Hyperdoc using Google Apps. So we're going to do a little bit of modeling for you. You can go to the next one, sorry. Okay, so there are many different Google document templates already available for you, which makes it really easy to make your own Hyperdoc. So these are just 4 examples. And Lisa, if you want to click on the first one on the left. Okay, so this one was an Explore, Explain, Apply Hyperdoc lesson template. And you'll notice though in the left-hand corner that it does say view only. So as long as it says view only, you do not own that document, someone else does. So you have to go ahead and make a copy of it in order for you to edit it and make it your own. So to do that, what you have to do is go to the upper left-hand corner and click on File. And then you go to make a copy. And from there, you can rename it. Look how good Lisa is. And then you can change the folder if you want to make sure that it's in your Google Documents however you want it. Or in your Google Drive, sorry. And now once you have done that, it is now yours. So from here, you can edit it in any way that you want to. So you'll see, and the nice thing about their templates is they really walk you through each step. So if you've never done this, this is great way to do it, because in this one, this is one where you'd put the title, you can put directions if you want to, but this gives you, you see the Explore, Explain, and Apply section. So you put what you want on the left side, and on the right side is the student's task where they're going to do whatever was in the directions. So over here, though, where it says explore, we can go ahead and kind of give an example. You would just delete the words that are in there. And then you would, speak, Ashley, okay. Then you would go to insert at the top. And here's where you can insert an image. This is where I would insert a link to go to another website. You can see any of the things you can insert, you could put on here. But normally what we do is we insert a link or an image. I saw go to image. And from there, if we had a link that we already knew of, which she probably doesn't have one right in front of her right now, but if you have a link that you know of, you can put it there. I'm going to grab one. So she puts the link there, and then she puts the title right there. And she put, look how to Hyperdoc. You could also, if you have a less skilled group, which I do with my teachers sometimes, is I will actually type, click here to access this document or this link, anything like that. You can do the same thing in each section, and usually you want to put some sort of directions above it. Go to this link. Sometimes you might want to insert a table for them to put their answers. To do that, you go to insert, table, choose over 2 or 3, however many you want to, and down a couple. And then you could put like a question on the left and they can answer on the right. And it's a nice organized way to do it, if that makes sense. And so they go through it step by step from there. And you can go out. Do you have something to add to that, Lisa? I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
No, and I agree. Like at the very beginning, I would say click here. Mm-hmm. Now I just say, sorry, we have announcements. But I would say like the sonnet that you're going to look at and just hyperdoc the word sonnet. And then students would have that word sonnet that they would click on. And anything that's underlined in blue, they know that that's something that's hyperlinked and they click on it.
Yes, and sometimes you can also, I mean, I didn't figure this out for a long time, and when I did, I was so excited. You could put a picture. So you could insert a picture and you can actually connect the link to the picture, but I always have to point out, click on the picture. So they click on the picture. Yeah, exactly like what she's doing. So you click on it and then you go to insert and then link. I don't know if it's going to work on that one.
It's not working, probably.
Not that one. Maybe it's because it's already made. Mm-hmm. But normally on the Hyperdoc itself, you can add the picture and then insert a link. I was so excited when I figured out how to do that. It took me, I mean, a lot of stuff is just a matter of just trying it out until you get used to it and you get more advanced as you go.
Let's see.
There we go. It's not. Are you clicking on the? There we go.
Yeah, sorry.
On the picture.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's what happens when we do this live. There we go.
Oh, it's the image.
Oh.
Yeah, but they get the idea. They get the principle.
Okay. But normally you can use the image, and then you can insert the link in it. They'll just click on the. You just have to guide them. And every Hyperdoc template is really the same process. The only other thing I would really comment on, just so if you're new or you don't know Google Documents, is in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a share button. That is where you can either share this document with another teacher or another community, or also with your student if you choose it to do it that way. It's kind of important to know that.
Yeah, and if you go to the advanced, you'll be able to, like here, it's private and only I can access it. I can change it to put it that I usually put anyone with a link, and then I save it like that. Another nice feature, if you do get extensions, is this one right here. It's anyone can view. If you get this extension, you just click on it, and then it shows that it's changed to anyone can view. So then you don't even have to do all those clicks with the share and everything. It saves you about 4 or 5 clicks.
Which that's always a good thing to do.
Yes.
Less clicking is better.
Yes.
Okay, if you want to go back to the slides, unless you have anything else to say on this.
Yeah, I'm just making sure to get rid of those so that we're not
okay.
things open.
Yeah, that is the one thing with your students, which I usually point out. I tell them after they've finished one task to go ahead and make sure they've exited out of the tabs, because they will end up with like 50 tabs open, which tends to be humorous to me, but you know, I try to get them to get it under control. Each one is pretty much set up the same way. These others are mostly examples, and these examples are available to you on several different collaborative links that we will share with you. The only other one we might want to just take a look at, it's the same process each time. I'm not going to go through all 4 of them, but we might want to look at the Google slide one, which is the one on the right. And this is just a real basic template. It's the exact same procedure. The only difference is if you're not used to a Google slide, you have to go slide by slide like she's doing right now. But again, you would do the exact same thing. You would go to File, you would make a copy, and then from there, you can do whatever you want. I love using the slides version because you can do a lot more creatively. I feel like you have a lot more freedom, and I like visual things, so I tend to enjoy that one in particular. But it is the same thing, and like I said, there's lots of places you can get these templates, and I definitely advise using them. Don't make your own if you don't have to. And
I would say the difference between using a doc and a slide is if you're doing a larger unit or book or something like that, I normally will use a slide. If I'm doing a lesson that's going to run maybe 3 or 4 days and it's more project based and I can put it on a doc and have it be more linear, I'll use that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Okay. You can go back to the slide.
Okay. I was shutting my door.
Okay.
Got open and people are running for track. I was like, we're going to hear them. Okay.
Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to switch it over to Lisa, and she is going to go through the section she's going to do using a pre-made Hyperdoc and making them from scratch. Okay,
so if you notice, the one on the left is very similar to what Ashley has shown before. She was showing you one. Oh, let me go back. Sorry. So basically, like I was saying before, it depends upon the lesson that you have and whether you're going to do a slide or you're going to do a doc. I choose a doc for this one because this used to be a very long, complicated process. There were lots of paper used for this. It was an all paper lesson. It went over a range of several days. But what was nice about this is I was able to take a lot of information and package it in a way that the students understood where we were going next. So I had them click on the hyperlinks, and when they would click on the hyperlinks, some of them would go to videos to engage them. Then when they went to the Explore, there was a series of photos they could look at. So you would have like the video here that they could watch on how to analyze photography. As soon as they click on it, it goes there. Another thing I would mention is when you Hyperdoc, we are one-on-one with iPads. The first time that last year I had students clicking on the links, they were like, I can't see the link. One thing that our county makes us do is to approve the video. So if it's not approved, the students will not see it. And another thing is students need to sign in with their YouTube accounts. Sometimes they'll say, I can't see it, or it's not playing. It's because they haven't signed in. So just little things like that could like wreck your Hyperdoc, and you'll be like, why does it work? And it's because of that. So what's nice about this is I was able to, like Ashley said, differentiate, but have them work. And this lasted a good week. But again, I was able to really think about the steps and how it would work. We broke it up, but the students loved it. They thought it was like very easy to follow. And they just analyzed photographs and poems together. And it was very linear, and they were able to see everything. Whenever I got this originally, it had different pictures. I just went in and changed the pictures. And I always like to make the background a different color when you hyperdoc, and that's so easy. You go to page setup, and you go here, and you can change the background. So right now, I could change it to purple if I wanted to. That's more like a pink, but you could change it, and you would be able to do that as well. And sometimes just the aesthetics of it really helps the students feel like a little bit more comfortable, because they see that everything is sort of broken into, you know, parts. So I might say to a class of on-grade students, today we're going to look at the engage and the explore. And if you want to go to the explain, you may, but you know, these are the two boxes we're doing today, and it just makes them feel a little bit better. And sometimes you can make it so that it's not so linear, but for that one, I made it very linear. So I'm going to get out of that and this one as well and go back. Another one, so this was pre-made. I just put my information in. So it was very much like Ashley had. This one was an actual one that was shared on Twitter, and the art of the selfie. And what I was going to do is last year, excuse me, I have a cold. Last year, I was going to blog with students, and I wanted them to do passion blogs, and it all centered on their own self and what was really important about them. And so when I saw this, I was like, what a perfect way to introduce it. Have them talk about the art of the selfie. And let me do that again. Sorry, I'm clicking on it, and then it's not going back to it. I'm going to just, oh. I know I have it linked because David said he looked at it.
I've had that problem the last time I did a YouTube live. It wouldn't go to the link the way it does normally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyhow, when we share it with you, oh, wait, I could go down here to the after. I'm sorry, the sharing thing is there. So with this, what I had them do, I did it for each class. I went ahead and I have to get to the top of it. I don't know why it came up like this. Probably the way that I copied the URL. That's important too. When you share with the students, always make sure you're on the first slide before you copy it. So I went ahead and I kept most of what they had intact, but they had personal examples of their pictures and their information. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to show my selfies, you know, with my kids and my nephews. And so I was like, I have to do that. And then my daughter's a big selfie girl. So we talked about inference and like what that does for her. But that was nice because it was like a nice little activity to do. And so I would say go to the Hyperdocs websites or go to Padlets that people share. And, you know, Ashley has some of those at the end. And go to those places, find Hyperdocs. And then what I do is I put them all in my drive in a folder called Hyperdocs. And when I'm getting to that point where I'm about to do a lesson or something new, I'll go and I'll be like, what can I do that would be engaging for the students? So what's nice is being able to, take something. And what I did down here when you do get the presentation is I showed you what it looked like before, empty, or what it looked like before I chopped it and took some of the stuff out, and then what it looked like after. So you can really make a Hyperdoc your own. Just make a copy like Ashley showed, and then just go ahead and make it what you want it to be for what vehicle you're using it for in the classroom. And then starting from scratch, one thing that I did with this one, the Sonnets one, I went ahead and just took a Google Doc. I opened it up, changed the background, found a picture, because these sonnets were about love, some of them. And then I just made the title. And like Ashley showed, you would insert a table. I went ahead and inserted a table. And at first I just made the table like this, like in the white, but then I added the blue afterwards. And you can always size them and make them, bigger or smaller, or whatever you want to do. And I changed these into different things of what they're going to do. I even had a pause section or stop section where I didn't want them to go any further because we had discussions on the way. But this over here were like working notes that while we were doing this, what were they learning? What were they observing? What did they understand about sonnets? So that whenever we got down to where they wrote their actual sonnet, no one was surprised, or they sort of had all the information written down. So all I did was just take a blank doc, add in columns, and just basically think through how I wanted to do it. Which sonnets did I want to use? What did we want to talk about? And I just went ahead and planned it out almost like a lesson plan. But how is it going to look long term? So it worked very well that way. If any of you are familiar with Go Formative, it's the same way. Just trying to, how are we going to get them to, delve into the topic and then go deeper and keep on working through it.
Yes. Lisa, can I just make also just an observation that I want to make, especially on that last one that you showed? So the cool thing is, and what I really, really love is, if you notice though, she's not following just the whatever, she's making her own subject areas on the left-hand side. So it's not that usually you see engage and, the typical things. She's made it her own, so you can make it however you want to. I think that's important. So there's no right or wrong necessarily. You just do it to meet the need of the lesson. And because I know I do a lot of times, I change it where I'll do like a pre-reading or pre-vocabulary or some sort of, or a pre-assessment to see what they know right now before we start. So you can make this and tweak this any way that you want to.
Right. And I mean, I took this essentially from a lesson that I had, and then another thing that I had found. And so I was pulling from all these different areas. And what was nice is I could move things around. And it was very visual for the teacher too, in terms of planning. You're able to see how things are changing as you're going. And a nice thing I do is I try to then think, here I am as the student. When I click on this, what am I going to see? What questions am I going to have? So I might add another column and be like, they really need this part. Whenever I was going through this, I was like, okay, this is going to be a lot for 51 minutes of a class period. So that's why I put the pause here, because I really wanted this here is, for them to have the questions. But when we came back in the next day, we would start on the question. We would talk about the stuff we noticed from the day before and what we had in our notes, and then begin the next section. So, it was something that was over a course of, I believe, like 4 days, but really the explore part was like 2, but then they had to write their own sonnets and then present them on Flipgrid or make an iMovie. So it turned into more of a project. The other one that I was going to talk about is this one. Here we go again. The other one, and let's see if I can see it. Problem is with the sharing, I think it sort of takes it off. Trying to see if I can see anything pop up, but that sharing's there. Let's see if I hit hide, if I can see it at all. I'm like trying to.
Is it a link?
Mm-hmm.
There is a link in there.
So if you just exit out of presentation mode,
it's the end of the day, David.
Should show the link that you clicked.
What is it?
It should show what you've linked the image to.
Yeah.
I guess
I had the same problem when I did mine the last time.
That's okay. We can go to my drive real quick. Actually, I have to go this way to my drive. And I'm just going to type in module 2. So give me 1 minute. It's being a little bit temperamental. It's worked a lot today. Okay, so module 2. And with this one, I got the template for it online, and somebody had used it for something completely different. So what I did was I made a copy, but I liked how it looked. And at the end, I went ahead and I thanked the person that came up with the Google Slide idea, and other people too that helped with the information. But what I did was I liked that this one had a color on the left, and then they had a text box on the right. And then some of them didn't have it, but I like that, and I kept on using it that way. So, and I just hyperdoced everything in. But what was nice is the students, I gave this to them in the About section, and each week they knew whenever I said, now go to week 1 and go to the 4 corners activity, they would click on it and they would know what we had done in there. Do you know what I mean? And it was just so very nice because it was all set up. So I did this as a huge unit. And so that's why it's sort of nice to do a slide versus a doc, because this on a doc would be confusing for students. This way they focused on one. Sometimes I even just sent them out one slide in their stream and would say, you know, you're just accessing that one slide. But everything was hyperdoced in, everything they were able to see. I even had their calendar hyperdoced in, which, you know, if you're a teacher and you like to show the students exactly what they're doing, they had their calendar hyperdoced in. I just used a Google Doc and turned it into a little calendar here. And then I hyperdoced all the other stuff in there so that they could see exactly what they were doing. So just the sheer magnitude of what you can put in here, this can be something that you can show supervisors, principals, you know, that this is your UBD backward mapping. This is my planning. This is how I put all of the information together so that students can access it. And what's nice about this is you can add to it, you can delete it from year to year.
And Lisa, on one like that, I'm asking this because I know other people are thinking it, only because I've had the question every single time I've presented hyperdocs. Somebody would ask you how long that took you to create.
I am a planner in the summer whenever I have my time. Both of my children sleep in the morning, and I sleep in till 6 o'clock, and then I'm up. And they sleep in till like 9:30, and I'm like, what am I going to do for 3.5 hours? So I would say this may have taken me a week, but I'm going to say I probably spent like about an hour and a half to 2 hours each day on it. Yeah. But I was pulling things from Drive, from Microsoft Word, from flash drives. Like, this was a couple years ago when I made this. And so it would have taken a lot of time. But now I have it. Mm-hmm. And now I can, you know, mold it and do it. But this would be, you know, you have all this stuff and you just don't want it to go to waste. And that's how I sort of felt with this unit. You know, I wanted it to be there, that if I wanted to use it, it was there. And it just gave me an idea that I was like, you know, let's put it here, because I'm going to tell you, I look at this more when I'm referencing, when I'm looking for 1984 information, than when I'm actually looking for you know, a doc in my Drive. I can go here and I can find it right away. Like, I know where it is because it's here. I know where that propaganda hyperdoc is because I went ahead and put it in the 1984 module 2. So I know it's there. So I would say that it's a lot of time to build something like this by yourself, but then, you know, it's invaluable later because you can actually use it over and over again, share it with others, collaborate with them. I did another Crucible Hyperdoc that's very similar to this with one of my colleagues, Kim Janifer. And it took us probably, I would say, 2 weeks, but we basically made it, shared it together, like, you know, made sure we both had editing rights, and we just kept on dropping things in. And what was really nice, we did that with a Great Gatsby one as well. The more people you get in on a hyperdoc like this, like a unit, if you have teams that you teach with and other things, you might be very well working on a hyperdoc together, but you will get so much more out of it. We got a lot of information. Kim actually helped me with some of this. She would say, oh, I have some stuff too. And she would send it to me and then I would drop it in. So it's a very nice thing to have. It just helps you have something that keeps you organized. And from day to day, you know what you're going to be doing. If you're the type of person that you want to stay organized like me.
That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say.
You had mentioned sending students to particular slides or trying to find, you know, old slides that you wanted to reaccess. How are you going about doing that? Sending them to like do you just tell them to go to slide 7?
Slide 9, week 1, you know, and I'll just tell them. Or you can take any slide and like copy it, and then you could paste it into a new slide, and that's the only slide there, and then put that into Google Classroom, and that's all they see.
Gotcha. One other suggestion, you might already be doing this, but I believe if you just click on the slide, like you clicked on week 1 here, now the URL at the top of the page, can't see it in presentation mode, but usually you can see it. It's actually gonna, if you just copy that URL at the top of the page, it's actually gonna, and give it to students, it'll take them right to this slide.
Okay.
I'm
out of presentation mode, but okay. I mean, another great thing too is, you know, you could do a lot of things to share this with the students. I can also, like, you could, another thing you could do with hyperdocs, if you want them to go to a certain slide, you can link the slides so that if they click on something, they'll go to that particular slide. So you could have a topic and they'll just go to that slide.
Gotcha.
Okay. So do you want to then go into the sharing?
Yes. And I just had wanted to bring up the thing about the time factor, because when you do create, and for me, what I've told people, because in adult education especially, they look at some of this stuff and their minds explode, because they're like, how do you have time to do this? And I've explained to them before that this is something I enjoy doing, first of all, and if I have time to commit to it, I will spend extra time doing it. But a lot of times for me, I have to go learn the material myself, because I might not know it that well, or maybe I'm not that familiar with the reading we're doing. So a lot of the time I'm spending is on that. But more importantly, I have also made a hyperdoc that's in less than 45 minutes. So it just depends on what you're doing. If it's just a day to 3 or 4 day lesson, it might not take me that long. It's also a matter of practice. But what I really, really want to point out, because this happened to me yesterday, is the part where once you have it made, it's yours forever and ever and ever. Because last night I had an emergency come up. I had to get a sub within a matter of less than an hour. So within 5 minutes, I had a hyperdoc that I had made last year on my Google Classroom ready to go. And I didn't hear a peep from anybody for the entire night. Their lesson was done. So you can use these for so many different things. And that's why I think it's so important that we're sharing them also, because it's really, and that's really the world that they've built, is this huge collaboration effort, which is really awesome. So, you know, that's the thing with technology. Once you have it forever.
Yeah, like these two, this one, it was a pre-existing lesson that was in a lot of documents. And it literally probably took me 2 hours to build. It seems like a lot, but I had all this stuff. I just had to drop things in and type up directions. And then the Art of the Selfie one was probably less than a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, because it was there. I just had to delete some slides, add some pictures, and then add the blogging aspect to it. And then I was done. So it's,
Absolutely.
it just all depends on how you look at it.
Absolutely. Okay, so from here, since we're talking about sharing, so this is the next question that tends to come up with educators is, okay, well, how do you share with students? So we're going to cover this. Now, when we were doing this, I was thinking I was sharing my screen, but so Lisa, you have Google Classroom though, right?
Yes.
Okay, you may have to open it in a second if you don't mind.
Okay.
Not necessarily right now, but in a second. So my first suggestion would be, if you do this, is if you have a learning management system such as Schoology, Edmodo, or preferably Google Classroom, you could share the link on your site, or you can make a copy for each student. Now, Schoology and Edmodo, and I know there's other ones out there, there's a lot of other ones out there. Those are the ones that we typically use in adult education. But Google Classroom is by far going to play the nicest with it. So I definitely say, if you have Google Classroom, use Google Classroom. You can also, but if you don't, and you're just getting started and you don't even know if you want to, how far you want to venture, but you want to try it out, you can always shorten your link of your Hyperdoc by going to either Google Shortener or Bitly, then have the students enter the link into their web browsers. I actually did this last Saturday with a training I did. I just shortened the URL, and I happened to make a Hyperdoc that they didn't have to actually edit anything, so they never had to actually make a copy. Or if your student have like some sort of a mobile device, you can always make a QR code. She's showing you the Google URL shortener. I prefer the Google URL shortener to Bitly personally. But within moments, you can have a shortened URL. Mm-hmm. You can also create a QR code, and then this is what I plan on using when I go to this conference. These conferences I have coming up is I'm going to have the Hyperdoc have a QR code on it, so that it's going to actually be physical, because I don't know that everybody's going to have a device. So they're actually going to have a hard copy that has a QR code, so they can go take their mobile device and scan it, and they will have it when they, so that it'll automatically go to their Google Drive.
Another thing that's nice, Ashley, to do when you go to that conference is when you go to like one of the Hyperdocs, you can, if you go to the Hyperdocs, you can publish it to the web. And so if you do get a group of people, because I always run into this when I go to conferences, is they don't have Google Classroom, or they don't have Docs because they're a Microsoft school or something like that. So if you publish it to the web, they'll be able to physically see it at least. Okay. And then you could share with them later. Do you know what I mean? But they could see it.
That I'm glad you told me that, and I'm glad your timing was so good on that, because I've been searching the right way to do this for weeks. I'm like, what is the best way to do this?
Yeah, and I ran into it the first time I ran into it. I was like, oh my goodness, not everybody is, G Suite Google. What?
No.
That's 2 years ago. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, I have been accused of using too much technology in some of my trainings, especially with our volunteers. So I have to be kind of careful how much I do. Right. So Google Classroom, we're going to just kind of demonstrate it real quick for you. Nothing super major. If you're not in Google Classroom and you're not super tech savvy, or you're just getting used to technology, in my opinion anyway, I think it is the easiest one to use of anything out there. I feel like it's Google. They make it very simple. But she's showing you right now is how to create an assignment. And to do that, she just clicked on the plus sign, and now she's putting a title on it. So we're creating a formative Hyperdoc for global poetry assignment. You could put directions on if you want. She went straight to her Google Drive because she's going to go grab the Hyperdoc out of there. Your Google Drive looks like mine. Okay, so now you can see the assignment there. And this is the critical part right here that I messed up last night. I forgot to do this part. You want to go to make a copy for each student, because that way, the second the student clicks on it, it makes a copy for them with their name on it. And when they're done with the assignment, it'll put a button on the top of it that says turn in. And that way they don't have to attach it to the assignment or share it with you or make a copy. There's like just a total elimination of steps. I did not know about this, and I felt almost foolish until the formative community told me about it. And I was like, why did I not know this? So once I found that out, my teachers that are using Hyperdocs were praising me. I'm like, yep, it definitely helps to collaborate with other people.
Yeah.
And after that, you just click assign. Sorry, go ahead.
And the way that it looks, just so that you guys can see, is like I have students, they are working on a document. It has their name, and then it says a copy of the actual doc. So then you know it's theirs, and whenever you open it up, you'll be able to see it that way.
Yeah, and you're actually able to see it because it is a Google document. So she can go in there and she can see what they're doing. So there's a formative assessment opportunity there too. So she can actually see what they're doing, and if they're going the wrong direction or she needs to provide feedback, she can put a comment on their document. And then, you can grade it and you can submit it back to them.
And what's nice also, you can open it and see them working on it before they turn it in. So as they're working on the Hyperdoc, you can jump on to each student. Usually they see me pop up and they're like, ah, they know I'm looking. And I check to see how they're doing. But if you notice too, I number my assignments so that they know in Google Classroom which one to go to. On which day. Like I'll say, we're going back to 046 or whatever, and they're able to do that as well.
Good tip. Thank you. I've not thought of doing that. And then, of course, if you are very, very new to everything, you could always email the link to your students if you wanted to do it that way. Again, I would seriously, if you have a Google account, you can get a Google Classroom started right away. So I would really encourage you to do that. And if you don't know about Google Classroom, it's not very hard to learn.
And one thing about emailing the link to the students or not making a copy for them, if you do that, you're going to have to make sure that your share is view only. And so you're going to just have to make sure that anyone can view, but they cannot actually type on it or do anything like that. Because
also, I learned something new the other day, that if you put it at the very end, when you have it in edit mode, if you change those words to copy and share it, it'll make an automatic copy. This is my new favorite thing right now.
Yes. So if you go here and you take the URL and you type copy, and then you do all of this, and then you copy it. And then if I send that link to them and I hit paste and go, they're going to get this come up, and they're going to actually have to make a copy of it before they can open it. So it's a forced copy. That's what it's called. And it will force them to make a copy.
In that case, do you then instruct them to share their copy with you?
Yeah, they would have to insert it in Google Classroom under the number that I tell them to, and then they would go and share it that way.
But with if you're just assigning it through Google Classroom, does it automatically if you pick that option, make a copy for each student, does it automatically share it with both you and the student?
Yes. Yes, you can actually see the students. If you go into theirs, like I had shown you, you see what they're doing. You can click on it. You can see their writing in there, and then you can also they can access it and write directly on it. If you make a copy for them, they don't have to do anything except for start to type.
This is a lot easier to do it this way than the way I was doing it in the beginning. This is, as you can see, it's a constant learning process. I mean, she's just taught me like 3 or 4 things just in this lesson. So it's a constant learning process. But I mean, in the beginning, how I was doing it was a lot more complicated because I was putting directions at the top. I was making them make a copy. And then I make them share it with me to my email, and then I'd have 100 different emails that would pop up. So, and then everything was very disorganized. When you do it through Google Classroom, it organizes it for you, and you don't get all those emails.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, you can go to the next one. we did that already. So we kind of covered that. We modeled that. And these are just ideas. I think I actually forgot about this section. Just ideas on how to use Hyperdocs in a lesson. As students work independently, the teacher acts as a facilitator. I always bring this up because I've read time and time again where teachers go, well, what the heck am I supposed to be doing? I probably do more work while they're doing Hyperdocs than I normally do, because you're walking around, you're facilitating, you're guiding, you're helping them with, and for me especially, I'm helping them learn technology and keyboarding skills, and as well as helping them with their material. And it also gives me that opportunity for more one-on-one time with those students that need a little extra help, but it lets those that are a little bit more advanced move on. As a class, the teacher can guide students through the steps. Like I said, that's one approach I take when I have a lower level group. As groups, students can collaborate and work on Hyperdocs together. From the overhead, students and teachers can either review or work through the sections together. A lot of times after we've completed a Hyperdocs, we will actually go through, depending on the length of it, obviously, we'll go through certain sections together to make sure that, you know, we have full understanding. Or you can also flip the classroom or use it for distance learning homework. I just became the director of distance learning here, and so I'm really, really, really hoping that this is my big vision and be too much for them right now, because right now they're not even getting homework as distance learning students. So my goal is that at some point we will end up doing Hyperdocs as homework. You can go to the next one.
Yeah, and I would say, just to add, I would definitely agree that as a facilitator during the Hyperdoc, you're walking through the classroom, you're checking on students, you're talking to them. But if you're like me and you try to get 10,000 steps a day, you're actually walking, you're up, and you do get a really good pulse on where the students are and who struggles and who's more independent, what kind of learners they are.
Okay, it's back to, okay, and then Lisa's going to take the next section.
Okay, so I'm not going to click on everything, but a lot of these are Hyperdocs, information, where to go. There's websites, there's different things that you can go to that would actually have full collections on Hyperdocs and where to go. The Hyperdocs website here that she was talking about here, where you can go to the Hyperdoc Girls website, as teachers pay, not teachers, sorry. It's teachers share with teachers, and you actually share your Hyperdocs. You give one and you're able to take them as well. I also did a podcast with Nikki Davis, and I went ahead and put that in as well. There's Hyperdoc Padlets, sorry. And this would have to, of course, happen because I'm here at school, but let me see if what else I can get into from here. See, it's blocking me because I'm at the school, but at home I saw these. But again, I would look at these. These are things that you can definitely use. And a nice thing I do is I do put them in Drive, but sometimes I'll put the Hyperdocs in Google Keep as well, just to keep it more organized and to know where things are. I'll put different areas where you can put that. Another thing is the Google Plus group for Hyperdocs. There's a Facebook group. There's also some Hyperdoc web tools on Pinterest. And then here's the site right here, the Teachers Give Teachers. And of course, it's not working. Sorry. Let me make sure. Yep, I'm on the right one. And let's see, what is this? Is this, oh, I know why. That one was on Twitter, is the one I was talking about. So give one, take one. But they have a lot of Hyperdocs on here. It's very nice. And then you can share and collaborate with other people. Another thing is our Go Formative community. We've been talking Hyperdocs in there a lot. The main thing to go to Formative is to go to goformative.com. And then how you get to the community center, if you haven't been there before, is you go to the question mark. I love always doing this. I check it at least a couple times a day. Go to the little heart that says community center. And then I just basically go here and I search, you know, if I want hyperdocs or whatever. When I did this with a science group, I just showed them science. Oh, look, there's Ashley. There's me. You know, and you get to read the different things that people are talking about, hyperdocs, and you get to read it. You get to talk about it to other people. And it is a really nice experience because this is how Ashley and I met. I didn't know her prior to this, but whenever we were meeting as Go Formative certified educators in the first group, we were asked to say what we wanted to talk about in some of our webinars. And Ashley and I both typed in hyperdocs. So it was destined for us to go ahead and do this at some point. So I did say how to do it. You can reach out to us. These are our handles on the actual Go Formative Community Center. So if you have a question, you can just type that in and it will go straight to us. And whenever I'm on the actual site, on the Go Formative site, up in the corner, this is how you know when somebody sent you something. So you have your information there, because it takes a little time to maneuver through it, but it's very, very much worth it. And I think that's it for the actual sharing.
Yes. So we just wanted to thank everybody, because I think we've both been trying to get this together for a while, but we both have crazy schedules, and even though we are in different parts of the country and teach completely different groups, we both definitely have a lot in common. And we noticed that immediately. We both have the similar visions, that Lisa has a lot of really, really good knowledge, and she has taught me a whole lot. So I always like to listen and see what she does. And I love seeing her hyperdocs, and her formatives are gorgeous. But hopefully now educators will have a better knowledge of the skills and knowledge that are needed for hyperdocs, how to create hyperdocs using the Google applications, how to use and edit pre-made hyperdocs, how to make hyperdocs from scratch, and how to use hyperdocs in their lessons, and how to collaborate and find other hyperdocs. And I think that we'll probably be sharing all of our resources in the community. I think that's our plan, David, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Somebody actually asked about the link to the Google Slides. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. They want a copy of the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can share that. We can definitely get that to them. And also, I have one that I made for adult educators, a website for adult educators, where I should have now almost every single one I've ever made or used on it, that can be used for other educators as well. It can easily be tweaked. So they're welcome to look at that one as well. That one's called Hyperdocs for Adult Educators, and that will be on there as well. Were there other questions? I didn't even think about that.
Somebody commented about using, having Farah asked about having Chromebooks and starting to use Hyperdocs in her school. So it seemed like it was one of those recommended devices, right, for Hyperdocs?
Yes. I know other teachers use Chromebooks every day for them. I'm lucky I have a computer lab I get to use every day. I'm just spoiled like that, but they use Chromebooks for them every day.
Gotcha.
And I would say we use iPads, and they work very nice with iPads. What I'm doing right now is I made the Google URL shortener. So if somebody's watching this, what they can do once I make it big enough so you can see it is, and sorry. Here's a Google URL shortener. What I'll do is I'll make it so it's in present mode, so it's bigger. And then you can go ahead and type that in. That should take you right to it. And when you type that in, it should just go straight to it. Let me make sure. I have a cold, so I have to check myself. I always do this. I didn't think about putting it. So yes, there it is. I just want to make sure. And then I'll go back to the beginning. All right. Yes, and I would say another thing, Ashley was saying about how knowledgeable I am. I will own it all to be a Google certified trainer. It's really important if you're really going to use Google a lot to take the Google certified courses. They're online. They're time consuming. The tests are nerve wracking. But if you're using Google Classroom and Google Docs and slides and a lot of things on a daily basis, you should do rather well and fare rather well. And if you fail the first time on the Google certified test, like I did for the level 1, it was because we didn't have G Suite exclusively like we do now. Mm-hmm. And I just studied more and did better. And the second time around, I did better. But everything is from taking those courses and just pushing yourself to learn it a little bit more, because if you're going to use it on a daily basis, you should be pretty savvy with it.
Awesome. Well, Ashley and Lisa, thank you so much for sharing. Definitely going to be sharing this link over Twitter so people can check out the slides, and definitely encourage everyone to join our community center. And there's actually a topic for this particular webinar where you can share, additional thoughts and questions with Lisa and Ashley. Or if you've started to create hyperdocs, you can also share your hyperdocs with them. So that's it for me, but thank you, Ashley and Lisa. It's great.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.